please allow me to introduce you to Mr. Phineas Gage, the foreman of a crew blasting a railroad bed in Vermont in the mid-1800s. On September 13, 1848, he was using a tamping rod to pack explosive powder into a hole, and the powder detonated. The tamping rod, 43 inches long, shot skyward and through Phineas's head. The rod penetrated Gage's left cheek, ripped into his brain, and exited through his skull, landing several dozen feet away. He remained conscious, telling the doctor on the scene, "Here's business enough for you." He lived 12 more years, working various odd jobs, but his emotional expression was slightly altered. Mr. Gage lives on as a case study on the impact of trauma in behavioral and emotional expression. Apparently, the tamping rod that shot through Gage's head separated the amygdala from the prefrontal cortex, resulting in uncontrolled emotional expression. Despite these alterations in his personality, Gage was able to live and even regain some previous functioning. The significant mark that Phineas Gage's horrible accident has made on the study of brain science and neurology has also opened up an awareness of the tension between the pain and suffering that comes from significant trauma and the hope that lies in our awareness of the plasticity and resilience of the brain, but also of the human spirit. Since 1848, there has been much advancement in the study of the brain, especially related to physical and emotional trauma. The areas of the brain implicated in the stress response include the amygdala, the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex. Traumatic stress is associated with significant changes in these areas. Trauma and stress reactions impact brain structure and neural activity that clearly impacts thought processes, emotional regulation, and behavior. However, not all is lost. I mean, look at Mr. Gage. Numerous studies show that the brain does have the ability to recover from trauma. Recovery of speech after stroke is an example of this. All that to say that with deference to Marty Feldman and the late Gene Wilder, there really is no such thing as an abnormal or abnormal brain. The brain is doing all that it can to recover and even grow. This may lead to what appears to be maladaptive behavior or emotional expression. The concept of the human response to trauma has been opened up for concentrated research through the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, or ACEs, in which more than 17,000 people provided information about their experiences of abuse, neglect, and family dysfunction. Roughly 68% of the participants indicated between 1 and 4 traumatic experiences in their lives. The ACE study findings suggest that certain experiences are major risk factors for the leading causes of illness, death, as well as a poor quality of life. Progress in preventing and recovering from the nation's worst health and social problems is likely to benefit from understanding that many of these problems arise as a consequence of traumatic experiences. Current nomenclature defines trauma as an event that is extremely upsetting and at least temporarily overwhelms internal resources. A single event or multiple events over time often cast a shadow over victim survivors, which leads to what are known as triggering events that remind the person of the original traumatic occurrence through some sensory cue. But don't worry, the College of Social Work is here to the rescue. We began offering some years ago a graduate certificate in trauma treatment. Basically, we teach our students a lot of things, but it boils down to asking our clients, what has happened to you rather than what is wrong with you. A significant subpopulation of those dealing with trauma and post-traumatic stress are veterans. In fact, 84.8% of Vietnam vets suffer with PTSD symptoms 30 years after combat. And 143,000 Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have been diagnosed with PTSD since 2002. The ramifications of trauma experiences can lead to significant social deficits. In fact, Veteran Administration data shows that from 2002 to 2009, 1 million troops left active duty in Iraq or Afghanistan and became eligible for VA care. Of those troops, only 46% came in for VA services. Lack of awareness and stigma were the top reasons listed for not accessing these services. Repeated research studies display the notion that peer-to-peer interventions and support have significantly positive impact on the lives of veterans in need. In fact, outcomes involving veteran peer support trends stronger than any other type of peer support. So how do we animate all this information? Through a partnership between a national faith-based organization, a federal government entity, and our own college. We have created a peer navigator program where veteran AmeriCorps members serve for 1 year in various Catholic Charities agencies across the country, providing support services to their peer vets in need. This program allows for veterans to work as case managers, not only to provide services, but to gain work experience that could lead to future employment. The typical veteran we have hired has had little work experience outside the military, and the majority have histories of addiction, homelessness, or other social difficulties. Over the 3-year lifespan of the program, the trauma-informed approach in which our peer navigators engage has led not only to successes for the clients, but positive outcome for the peers. In fact, over 50% of them had full-time positions as the year of service ended. Anecdotally, these folks also developed positive supportive relationships throughout the country. Part of the work of the Vet AmeriCorps is to recruit volunteers to work on various projects in support of veterans. Hundreds of volunteers across the country have served meals, repaired houses, and built wheelchair ramps. Additionally, these hundreds of volunteers are now aware of the difficulties that many of our veterans face each day. Measurement of the interventions has shown positive trajectories for the clients served in our Peer Navigator program in 3 particular areas. Increased knowledge of services offered to the vet population, increases in housing stability, and decreases in feelings of generalized anxiety, thus a decrease in the impact of trauma on these veteran lives. Thanks so much for sticking around and listening to me speak tonight. Thanks to our Dean, Karen Soares, for letting me work on this project, and for my colleagues in social work. And also thanks to our veterans for all the multiple layers of services that they've offered to our world.